I'm going to demonstrate some of the techniques for creating poster number 2. Remember, poster number 2 has a varied line weight, and the varied line weight denotes the weight of the objects against the ground and also gives some indication about where the light is coming from. One of the things I'd like to do is just show you in the photo where the light is coming from, and that'll give us some indications as to how to vary the thickness of the line. So when I open up the layers, I turn on the layer at the very bottom, which is the image layer, and then I'm going to actually click on the eyeballs and just click drag up to turn off all the other lines that we have created. This gives us a good view of the bottle. If you'll notice, the light is coming from the right-hand side, and so I will be varying the weight of the line such that the left-hand side, especially the bottom left of the objects, will be heavier than the right side. So this is giving me an indication of how to work, but realize at this point it's not necessary for you to follow exactly what's happening in the photograph. You're just giving a illustrated indication of light. So I'm going to, with the information that I have, turn off the photograph on the very bottom, and I'm going to begin. Now, there's a lot of objects in front of the object I want to start with, and that is the bottle. The bottle, if you remember, is way in the back. Now, if you want to know where something is, all you have to do is go to your selection tool and click on it, and it'll give some indication as to where it exists. If you look in this layer palette, you'll see that the bottle is almost on the bottom. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do the same thing I just did, turn off everything else except for the bottle and except for the layer. If you have the layer turned off, you can't see it. So I have this bottle right here. It's looking kind of silly on the bottom, but that's sitting behind the grape, so we don't care. So I'm going to go over to what's called the width tool, which actually varies the width of lines. And I'm going to select it, and I'm going to go over to the bottle. And once I'm at the bottle, I'm going to start at some location. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag, and notice that the width of the bottle expands. Now, it doesn't expand evenly throughout the whole area. It basically assumes that you're going to expand at the area and then narrow at the next point. Now, that's kind of not what I want. I want it to be relatively even throughout the whole thing. So I have to go back and make some adjustments. The first adjustment I'll make is down here. I'll make that a little bit wider, make this a little bit wider. And again, the bottom doesn't matter. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that I can make some adjustments up here as well. I'm going to grab the point and maybe a little bit wider here. And I'm going to scroll back. And that's okay. It might be a little thick. You can go back to any of these points and narrow them if you want as well. All right. So I'm going to click off. And now you can tell, especially when you're looking in this area, that there's some indication that light is coming from one side and not the other. So I'm going to zoom in just for now. And the light's hitting the top of the bottle in a funny way. I would imagine it'd be kind of light on top. So notice it kind of tapers off. I might want to make that taper to be a little more dramatic. So there's already a width point right here. I can make another width point right here and narrow it down a little bit. And that kind of gives more of a sense that the top is being lit. All right. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the glass. I don't want it on this side to expand because I want to give a sense of difference of line weight. But what has happened is when I expanded this side, it went kind of swung all the way around, if you'll notice, and onto this side. I can make adjustments around that, and I'll do that right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in, And every time you use the width tool, you actually make a point. And it remembers that point. And I can make another point somewhere else, and the point that I just made will hold the width of the line steady at that spot, but then I can narrow it down. But I don't want the top rim of the glass to be thick. So I'm actually just going to put a point here just to hold things in place. And then I'm going to go just below that point and make it a little wider. Now another neat trick that I can do is I can grab that center point, if you'll notice, and I can push it up a little bit. And notice now it actually comes to the top part of the rim, but does not exceed the rim. Okay. So the last thing I would do is work on the grapes. Again, I don't want to go overboard with this stuff, but I remember the light is probably coming in from the top right. So on the bottom left, I'm going to just give it a little bit of a nudge. I'm going to start a point there and make it a little bit thicker. Again, you don't want to go crazy. I think that's a bit ridiculous. Doesn't look like a grape anymore. But something just to indicate there's a little bit of a shadow falling behind. Sometimes it's easier if you zoom in, you get a little bit more control. Again, I think that's still a little bit big. And it's a little big around here, so I'm going to put another point here. Push it up. So sometimes it takes some adjusting. And I'm not going to ignore the stuff behind too. I'm actually going to make some nod to the grapes that you can barely see, just so they kind of correspond to what we're seeing in front. And again, most of the points I'm putting is on the other side of the grapes. So if you compare that to poster number 1, basically you have this notion that the light is coming in from